You are listening to Travel is Cheaper Than Divorce. This podcast is for all those who may be struggling with their spouse or their children and the relationship with them. We help give you tips and tricks by using travel as the means to be able to help your relationships with your family. I will provide those tricks and other ways to help travel with little or no cost. So let's get into it. So one of the things the system believes that you, if you're having problems in your marriage, is the thing that you should do is to get a therapist. That you need to take the story that you have with your spouse and stick it behind closed doors and talk to somebody who can just give you advice on how to think or how to talk to each other or whatever. I'm not here to tell you that doesn't have a place anywhere. It is possible that might be the route that is the best. But I'm here to tell you that there might be an alternative. Now, this is part 2 of a two-part series, two-part episode, because the first episode all talked about why it's important for you and your spouse to get away from your children. And in this episode, I want to talk about the how to do it, almost like a step-by-step. And in a way that is possible for you and your spouse to do that now. Because as I alluded in the first episode, if you haven't listened to that, I would do that. In the first part of this two-parter, I alluded to the fact that the system that I have built, that I keep talking about, it takes time to build. Not a lot of time, but still some time. And you need to get away now. But you can listen to that on your own. So in this episode, I want to focus on the how, the step-by-step on how, because people think that they don't have the money for it, right? We talked about that also earlier. In this way, I want to be able to teach you and tell you step-by-step how you can and how it's actually cheaper than, say, a therapist or a divorce attorney. Full disclosure, I have never been to my wife and I have never been to a marriage counselor, marriage therapist. This is the route we ran instead. It's a much funner route, I would say, than sitting in an office for 12 hours a day. Or not 12 hours a day, sorry. So sitting in a therapist's office, for an hour a week, talking about your issues with each other and possibly even making it worse. I don't know what the percentages are on how much marriage therapists actually help. But this is the route that I believe in my experiences that is better. Anyways, I spent last episode talking about that. I'm going to tell you how you can travel now, and not worry about the system right now because you don't have time for that, like I said in the last episode. So the first step in doing any of this is you got to find yourself a destination. But before we get there, let me just give you a quick idea of money here. Money is pretty cold, so I don't like to spend a lot of time in this podcast speaking about that, but as we are talking about a step-by-step on how to do this, I want you to understand the comparison in the numbers as I am a numbers person in that way. The average, I would say, and might even be a little bit higher, might be lower, but the average session, say, with a therapist may be $100 a session. Over a quarter, most therapists want you to meet with them once a week, so over a quarter, you're looking at about $1,200 in therapist fees. That's a lot of money to talk to somebody, I think. Also, another thing you might be aware of or may not be aware of, and I hope you aren't aware of it because you didn't have to look into it, but the average cost to hire a divorce attorney is $11,400. It's pretty expensive. Traveling is cheaper, guys. Traveling is cheaper than a therapist. Traveling is cheaper than a divorce attorney. A therapist again, may help, but even if you're not to the point of divorce and you're just thinking about therapy, that could be a route. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you the route that I ran. Because you don't have to have luxury vacations now. I want you guys to get there. That's the point of the system that I built, or I learned, and then I'm teaching, I should say. I just built the education on how to do it, but I want you to be able to travel now because it's important to save your marriage. So what my wife and I did is we did once a quarter. We went and traveled, even if it was just for a day or two. Sometimes it was never overnight and we went back home. I don't feel like that was enough. She didn't feel like that was enough, for especially with travel getting out of the area, at least 2 hours away. Our shortest trip was at least 2 hours away. But how we did it is this way. I want you to keep it in your mind $1,200. That, again, as I told you earlier, is the average cost for, not even an average cost, just my experience cost in therapy, doing therapy for $100 a week over a 3-month period or a quarter. The first thing you need to do, the number one step you need to do, is decide that you're going to do it. That's it. You need to have your spouse's buy-in, obviously, and you need to do it. And the best way to say, oh, I'm going to do it, and you just say it in your mind, that's not good enough. Once you get your spouse's buy-in, you schedule it. That's when you're actually doing it. You decide, these are the dates. These are the dates I'm going to go. Or here's the range of dates I'm going to go. And I'll tell you why that's important later. But in my experience with my spouse, if you do not schedule it, it will not happen. So first, you need to have either a range of dates or just some dates picked out, and you put it on your calendar if you have specific dates at least. The next thing you do, and I'm just going to teach you the cheapest way to travel, especially on a short notice, is as soon as you have those dates, if you want to get out of the state even, then now we're talking about booking airfare. Now, the first thing everybody thinks, oh, airfare is expensive. Is it though? Is it? Or you just don't know how to book it. Now, I don't know where you live in the world right now, but certain airlines, and this is I want to teach you about real quick, certain airlines have certain hubs. Now, you can find those online. There's actually a list of hubs that you can find. Just Google airline hubs. A list of airline hubs might be a good Google search. The reason I bring that up is if you go from one hub, from one airline, so if let's just use Southwest as an example, because the closest international airport to me and my home is Las Vegas, and the only one that hubs there is Southwest. So if I take a Southwest flight from Vegas to any of their other hubs, and there's a list, then that's going to be really a lot cheaper than going just randomly picking a destination. That might actually even help you pick your destination. So that's one way of doing it, or you can again drive 2 hours away, whatever. But I'm teaching you that airline hubs matter if you're really trying to pinch a penny. Now, I like Southwest more than say a Frontier or a Spirit because I don't want to worry about paying extra fees when I get on board. You can check a bag. I never check a bag. That's a different story for a different podcast episode, but I never check a bag. We went on a 10-day trip to Hawaii and I didn't check a bag. I could talk about that for a while, but that's not the point of this episode. But I just don't like to deal with the airline losing bags as possibly, and there's a lot of reasons. But anyway, Southwest has the opportunity for you to check 2 bags. So in my experience, the first thing you do is you book that flight, figure out where you're going and book that flight. Now, I'm going to use the example of, again, Las Vegas to another one of their hubs, Denver. That's a little bit away for me. And I decide that I want to go to Denver. That flight, as of now, and I just picked some random dates about a month out, the cheapest flight I can get on a Southwest flight is $89 one way. So that equals up, I'm going to do it actually right in front of you. Make sure that number is correct. Pardon me. It is $87. Pardon me. So $87 one way. So we times that by 4 because we need 4 tickets, 2 tickets each way. So we're looking at $348. $348 in airfare, right? That's back and forth. Well, that sounds like a lot, right? Really? How much is that How much is that therapist again? It's not as expensive as you think it is. When you get there, you need a place to stay. Great. So I did basically a trip that lasts 4 days. The 4 days is there's 2 travel days on each end, right? So get there, get back home, and then there's 2 days staying in Denver. Okay. In those 4 days, let me teach you something else you need to do. The next step, essentially. And this is going to be just going with the knowledge I have on the system as well. I would not use sites like Expedia, hotels.com, or any of these other sites that are basically travel agent sites. The reason being, there's a myriad of reasons. I really don't want to get into them today. I actually have a YouTube short on that. If you can go to my YouTube channel and check that out. But a lot of it has to do with you're not earning points and you're not dealing with the hotel directly. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I know this because I've done it. It takes some work. So I usually search the 3 major hotel brands because no matter where I'm going to find a hotel, generally speaking. The 3 major hotel brands are Marriott, Hilton, and IHG. Some people consider Hyatt in there. Hyatt's getting better. They have more of a footprint, but right now those are the 3 that I search. And I go to each website and I search those dates for those on those 3 hotel brands and really try to figure out which one's the cheapest and also a decent quality hotel. Now, I'm going to give you a couple money-saving tricks that we used. And they might sound outlandish, but I mean, you're looking at remember, what is the goal here? The goal here is for you to be able to get away with your spouse. The goal isn't here to pretend like you are wealthy. Although you can do that with the system. That's what I love about the system, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about getting away now. So I get onto all 3 of the websites, individual websites, Marriott, Hilton, IHG. And if you want to search Hyatt too, that's fine too. And I look for hotels. And now when I'm searching for hotels, because again, money saving opportunity here, I always search for hotels. They have filters. Okay. They have filters on the top. Every single hotel place, especially when I was in the situation I was, that you may be in right now, I always search for free breakfast. Let me tell you why. My wife and I, in order to save money when we traveled, because remember, the goal isn't anything but just to heal as a couple and really just spend some time together, rekindle romance in a way. I remember doing this. We would go to hotels with free breakfasts and we would load up. I mean, load up. Remember, these free breakfasts are all you can eat, and we loaded up. And why? We loaded up so we didn't have to eat lunch. We loaded up so we can avoid going out for lunch. That's a money-saving tip. Search for the free breakfast hotels. Load up on breakfast. That will save you on meals while you're out. Here's another money-saving opportunity when you search for hotels. There are quite a few hotels, and they're not that expensive overall, that have kitchens, full-on kitchens inside of their hotel rooms. You could even cook then. Or if you really want to be motivated to save money, electric pressure cookers. Bring it with you. If you're not traveling by flight, that'd be hard to do on a flight. But if you're just traveling a couple hours outside of your town, bring it with you. Cook in there. All this can save money on food while you're there. But let's get back to the hotel booking. These are all things that we have done, by the way, and they worked well. But getting back to the hotel booking, you want to get those hotels with a free breakfast so you can save money on food. Now, Marriott, and each one of these hotels have their different thing, but Marriott has a filter that shows, mid-tier hotels and luxury hotels and that kind of thing. In your guys' case, it shouldn't really ultimately matter. Usually the Marriotts and the Hiltons of the world are pretty good. Now, the next thing you want to look for is you want to filter those hotels by lowest to highest as far as cost. So you do that next, not by distance. You do it by distance. If I put in Denver, Colorado, and I do it by distance on Marriott, I'm looking at $512 a night. That's ridiculous. I would not pay that. Not in that situation. Actually, I wouldn't pay that in cash anyways. In the system I have, I pay with points anyways. I would not pay cash for a hotel for $512 a night. That's ridiculous. So I sort it by cost. And you want to make sure you're not too far out of the city, but they usually don't send you too far out when you search for hotels. And you get that low-cost hotel. But the next thing you do is you don't just pick the cheapest hotel. Look at those reviews. That way you're not you're hating your life because you picked a horrible hotel. So you look at those reviews. You get that free breakfast. Those are the filters you want to use usually. Or if you want to filter in for a full kitchen in there, you could do that too if you want to take it to the next level. In my case, I did that. And IHG came out for those 3 nights. Because I did a Monday through Thursday trip. So those 3 nights came out at $385. All right. $385 for those nights. Total, by the way. So that being case, the total for your trip so far is now $733 minus taxes and fees. So let's say another $100 for those. So we're up to like $800, and we'll just round up, say $850. Ladies and gentlemen, that is cheaper than $1,200 for a therapist. And a heck of a lot funner. I don't want to talk to a therapist. I mean, everybody has their thing. I'm not saying, like I said at the beginning, disclaimer there, I'm not saying not to go to a therapist. I'm saying that this is an alternative too. That's all I'm saying. And if you could take that money you would spend on a therapist and you spend it on a trip, it's a lot funner. And frankly, it could work better. It could. This has just been my experience. Remember, these are round trip tickets, and then you gotta figure in you're traveling from the airport. I would not get a rental car for cheapness purposes. Get an Uber, get a Lyft, whatever the other ride sharing opportunities there are out there. Do those. That's a lot cheaper than say a cab. It's a heck of a lot cheaper than a rental car. That's what I would do. And then for as activities, heck, you may not leave your hotel room. I'm not trying to get into your life, but maybe you don't even leave the hotel room a lot of the time. Or maybe you do. Take an Uber and get a hike done. Take an Uber to a museum that costs very little. There's a lot of things you can do activity-wise that still is in the range of possibilities to have a good time with your spouse. Because you got to remember what the goal is. The goal is to rekindle and re-up your marriage. The goal isn't to go to a basketball game or go to a 5-star restaurant or a 5-star. That's not your goal. Keep your eyes on what we're there for. Now, every marriage is different. In my marriage, my wife likes to be more spontaneous than I do. I'm a bit of a planner. It's kind of, it's just how I am. So if your wife's more spontaneous, then maybe you don't plan as much, because I could plan. I used to plan our trips down to the minute, and it drove her insane because it gave her no flexibility. And I always was really pretty strong about my schedule. So, but you don't have to do that. But if you guys are both planner types, then do it. If you're both spontaneous, do that too. That part of it doesn't matter so much. Remember, the part that matters is getting away. That's the part that matters. So I hope that helps. I hope you can see that if you look at travel and you say, well, I can't do that, I can't afford that. Oh, really? Can you afford a therapist every week at $100 a pop? Or a divorce attorney for $11,400 because you didn't do anything at all? You just sat down and hoped that everything worked out okay? Guys, I am lucky because I listened. I'm lucky because I have a very patient spouse who dealt with my crap for way too long, in my opinion. I'm incredibly grateful for her patience with me. She is a light in my life, and I love her to death. And we would not be where we're at if we didn't take action. And I'm just giving you an option for action. Divorce attorney, therapist, travel. Which one's funner? So here is again what I would like you to do. What I did and what I feel like is a good step. Again, schedule it. Schedule it now. Not tomorrow. I'll get to it in a couple weeks. You'll never get to it. Schedule it now. Now is the time to schedule it. Get it on your calendar. I'm sorry. I alluded to something I didn't talk about. I don't want to forget it. If you have flexible dates, you can even go on these websites, on all of these websites. Southwest. Oh, by the way, if you're flexible on airline, because there's a bunch of airlines that hub at the airport closest to you, use a website. I use a website called kayak.com, KAYAK.com. They are where I search flights. It just doesn't search Southwest. That's why I didn't mention it, because the hub that I'm at is Southwest. But so I want to make sure you mention that as well, because maybe a couple of airlines hub where you're at, and so keep that in mind too. There's websites like that, but they direct you to the website of the airline to book. Again, booking directly with the hotel and directly with the airline is extremely important. Sorry, I want to make sure I mentioned that earlier because I talked about maybe having flexible dates. So again, schedule it. Schedule it now. And if you have flexible dates, find your flexible dates. Find what dates are the cheapest on your hotel and your airline, and then schedule it then. Just schedule it. I would make it a goal before you listen to my voice again on my next episode for you to schedule a time for you and your spouse to get out. Just get away. Even if it avoids airlines, just 2 hours away, whatever. Just get away. You have been listening to Travel is Cheaper Than Divorce with me, your host, David Packer. Please connect with us on our YouTube channel at Travel Point Pros. There you will learn many tips and tricks on how to use points and miles to travel in luxury for little to no costs. Remember to like and subscribe and comment on any of the videos that you find helpful to you. Thank you for listening.